I credit the mid to late 90s era of gaming for building the foundation of my current taste in games. One pillar of that foundation is the tried and true platformer. It seems simple at first, just jump on and off things, easy peasy. Add puzzles and hidden collectibles and you basically have Banjo-Kazooie for the N64. I spent hours unlocking every Jiggy and especially trying to get to that bait of a key in Freeze Easy Peak. If you know, you know. Similarly, Ruffy in the Riverside carves its own path, building on Banjo-Kazooie with hints of Crash Bandicoot, Paper Mario, and other 3D platformer classics. Hell, toss in a sprinkle of Ocarina of Time to the mix, even though it's an action-adventure game. Regardless, that era's DNA is present and I'm all for it. What actually is Ruffy in the Riverside? Well, it's essentially a 3D/2D collect-a-thon heavily centered around the unique swap mechanic. Use it to scan various textures and surfaces, holding it for a brief moment and pasting it onto another texture or surface to solve a plethora of environmental and physics-based brain teasers. Along the way, you'll meet plenty of eccentric characters, complete side missions, dodge traps and hazards, explore distinct regions, collect plenty of shiny objects, and can even customize the different textures in your world, drawing in your own designs or completely changing the color palette of surfaces like the rivers in your game, and make them purple, for example. It's a really ambitious and interesting mechanic to play with, but you'll quickly find it's a bit more limiting than you'd first expect. There are also some minor flaws sprinkled throughout an otherwise joyful experience, but more on that later. The core gameplay is pretty straightforward, which is a double-edged sword. While there is platforming and trap dodging, the game is highly puzzle heavy. Nearly every task requires examining your surroundings and using swap. For a marketed 3D platformer, enthusiasts might crave a little bit more. But straight up, the swap mechanic is certifiably satisfying. Turning waterfalls into climbable vines or hot swapping symbols to unlock brief 2D platforming sections feels great to execute. However, I sometimes found myself confused by the intricacies of how swap works. I'd assume a texture was swappable only to have nothing happen. And I know that sounds kinda nitpicky, but still, this is one of the coolest mechanics I've seen in a game so far. And at the least, it made finding collectibles a really fun experience regardless. The types of collectibles are relatively diverse. The Dreamstones are especially cool. Each one represents a specific texture like stone, grass, or ice. Collecting these literally lets you redesign how these surfaces look across the entire game world, which ties directly into that texture customization I mentioned earlier. Crucially, you'll also collect sacred letters by completing the main quest line. These are your ticket to the endgame, earned through major tasks like helping ghosts with their tombstone designs, climbing a trap-filled pyramid, or scaling a sandy mountain ravaged by a windstorm. Puzzles are the foundation of Ruffy's gameplay house. You'll tackle environmental obstacles like turning the ocean into ice to reach a distant ladder, or complete physics-based challenges like changing the weight of a hay bale scale, say that 10 times fast, to perfectly even out and reveal a collectible reward. Then there are pattern matching puzzles on what are called pattern potatoes. The variety keeps things fresh, even if the difficulty of most puzzles often leads towards the easy side. Like I mentioned earlier, platforming is surprisingly not too present here. The sections that do exist serve as an unfulfilling appetizer between region transitions or puzzle solving, which could understandably turn players away from continuing through the game. I did wish for slightly deeper combat mechanics. While I didn't expect character action level combat mechanics, I do wish that there was just a bit more to it to add more variety and help with the overall pacing. Progression systems are a mixed bag. Health upgrades are plentiful if you explore and collect coins, letting you max out early and trivialize later challenges. The cosmetic capes, red, blue, or green, are a neat idea on paper. You upgrade them via a roulette system that randomly selects one of the 3 capes, granting bonuses like extra stamina or faster healing. But in practice, it's a system that never quite finds its footing. If RNG blesses a cape color you dislike, you feel pressured to wear it for the stats. However, you could easily ignore this whole system and still have a decent time, even if I'm not fond of the idea of having a mechanic that can be completely ignored. Otherwise, what's the point? The story, while not terrible, definitely tries to get you to care about what's going on, but for me, it was just serviceable. It takes place in a wondrous land known as Riverside, not to be confused with Riverside, California. You play as Ruffy, a whimsical young bear gifted with an ability called Swap, where he can manipulate textures and elements within the game world, such as turning water to lava. He's also thought to be the Chosen One, the protector of Riverside. As Ruffy, you must use your abilities to stop a floating evil Rubik's Cube named Grawl from destroying the world core and throwing Riverside into disarray. To do so, you're tasked with collecting the sacred letters that power the world core and provide it with protection. It's all standard fare, a little too safe even. I would have loved for there to to be just an inkling of edge or ruffiness thrown into the narrative. It is somewhat elevated by the deeper lore woven into the world and those collectibles, though with the way the main story plays out, it can be hard to become invested in it at all. Something to consider too is just how dialogue heavy this game is. Conversations are frequent and sometimes end up going longer than I'd initially expect. At first it was kinda charming and endearing, but it quickly started feeling like it was breaking up the flow way too often. Ruffy's heart of gold sincerity and the quirky cast can be endearing too, but by the end of it I was sorta relieved it was all over. The plot does get predictable by the mid-game and the ending twist feels a little awkward in its execution, but it ultimately serves as a cozy vehicle for exploring the world. At the very least, Ruffy excels in visual presentation and contains a consistently entertaining soundtrack. So let's talk about looks and sounds because this game is genuinely a joy to journey through. Visually, it's like stepping into Paper Mario's vibrant pop-up book universe filtered through a sketch artist's lively notebook. Characters have this sick-looking flipbook effect where their hand-drawn surfaces seem to ripple and shift with life, a marvel that clearly required frame-by-frame artistry. Every design carries a distinct personality. My favorite details are both the running and standing idle animations for Ruffy and the other characters, even if Ruffy's constant Italian-esque gesturing is kinda puzzling. Seriously, what the hell's going on here? The soundtrack though is a highlight. It did take me a little bit to warm up to it because of its pseudo hip-hop adjacent folksy sound, but I started to appreciate the variety and found myself humming a tune or two while playing. Most of the songs are jams, despite the fact that sometimes songs would abruptly change when transitioning between different regions. It's probably because the crossfade between songs was too short in duration, so the fade curve didn't increase smoothly. And while I didn't mention it earlier, it's just one of a few examples of some areas in the game where there's definitely some polishing up needed, but I didn't want to harp on it too much. Anyway, there are plenty of infectiously upbeat overworld tunes as well as hauntingly beautiful ambient tracks in places like the Sacred Tree Grove at night, which was one of my favorites. But enough about that, let's wrap up with how I ultimately feel about it all. So where does Ruffy in the Riverside land after spending so much time journeying through its world? It's a heartfelt love letter to the N64 and PS1 era platformer spirit, powered by a unique mechanic with crazy potential in the swap tool. I have my grievances with its limitations, but I truly think the devs could take it and run with it in future titles. Exploration feels generally rewarding thanks to all the secrets to discover and the several types of different collectibles. Puzzles, while not really brutally challenging, encourage clever use of your powers across diverse formats from physics-based challenges to symbol matching conundrums, and the world itself is a genuine handcrafted visual wonder bursting with charm at every turn. Having said that, combat remains undeniably bare bones, often feeling like an afterthought. The difficulty leans decidedly casual across puzzles, platforming, and bosses, so veterans seeking intense challenges might find it too forgiving. Systems like the RNG-based cape upgrades or the easily maxed health feel underdeveloped and can trivialize later sections, but crucially for me, these shortcomings still didn't ruin my experience. The core act of swapping and exploring, of reshaping the world and uncovering its secrets, remained engaging for most of my playthrough. If nothing else, at its core, Ruffy is clearly meant to be a wholesome and pure fun experience, and for the most part, it achieves that. So if you adore the exploration and charm of games like Paper Mario or Banjo-Kazooie, if you relish the pure creativity of tinkering with game worlds and mechanics, or if you just crave a bright, cheerful adventure that doesn't overstay its welcome, this is your ideal playground. However, if you don't like frequent, flow-interrupting dialogue, or you prefer deep combat, diverse platforming challenges, or complex systems, Ruffy might feel a bit too lightweight for your tastes. All in all, as a debut title from Socrates Labs, it's still a damn good effort in style, charm, and central mechanic execution, despite the latter feeling like so much more could be done with it. While I don't think it'll crack my top 5 platformers of all time, it's absolutely a standout indie this year that left me satisfied. The swap mechanic shows incredible potential. Throughout my playthrough, I kept imagining how it could evolve in future iterations with more complex environmental interactions or layered puzzle design. What's here is wonderfully executed, but I genuinely believe the developers have only scratched the surface of what this concept can achieve. Riverside is a world I loved interacting with, and if you appreciate innovation wrapped in whimsy, you may just dig it too. After all, sometimes the bare necessities are all you need for a great time. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe, as it helps the channel grow and I can keep sharing cool, overlooked indie games with y'all. Also, what are some of your favorite indie games of the year so far? I'd love to read about them in the comments, so let me know. See you in the next one. Peace out.